Most hunters assume more velocity means more killing power. The physics tell a different story. Today, we're breaking down overlooked recoil data, powder burn efficiency, and terminal ballistics that the ammunition industry rarely puts on a spec sheet. Our number one pick traces its design back over a century to a cartridge that armed soldiers before it ever armed hunters. Let's get into it. Rank number 5, the 6.5 Creedmoor. This cartridge matters because it proved aerodynamic efficiency could outperform raw velocity in the field. Engineers designed the 6.5 Creedmoor in 2007 for long-range target competition, not hunting. Hornady built it around a short, fat case designed to feed reliably through short-action rifles while seating long, high ballistic coefficient bullets. Competitive shooters embraced it first, and hunters followed once the terminal performance data caught up. Here is what most people miss about this cartridge. Its recoil energy runs close to 12 foot-pounds in an 8-pound rifle, nearly half that of a .30-06 Springfield firing a comparable bullet weight. That reduction changes how a hunter shoots under stress. Lower recoil means the shooter keeps their eye on the scope through the shot, watches the impact, and often gets off a faster follow-up round if needed. The 6.5 Creedmoor fires a 143-grain bullet at 2,700 feet per second, producing roughly 1148 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards. Compare that to the .308 Winchester, which produces around 1180 foot-pounds at the same distance, despite a heavier bullet. The Creedmoor's advantage isn't raw power. It's a bullet that resists wind drift and holds velocity longer downrange. The trade-off is limited stopping power on the heaviest game species at close range. This cartridge shines on deer and pronghorn, not moose or brown bear. Designers built it to solve a long-range accuracy problem, not to maximize energy transfer on massive animals. Next on this list, a cartridge from 1925 that still outpaces most modern designs in flat trajectory. Rank number 4, the 6.8 Western and the .270 Winchester. This entry matters because it shows how a single-case design, nearly a century old, still shapes modern cartridge engineering today. Winchester introduced the .270 in 1925, necking down the .30-03 case to accept a 277-inch bullet. That decision created one of the flattest shooting cartridges available to civilian hunters at the time, and it reshaped how open country hunters approached long shots on pronghorn and mule deer. Decades later, engineers revisited that same bullet diameter to build the 6.8 Western, a cartridge meant to bridge classic trajectory performance with modern heavy bullet technology. Here is the engineering decision that changed everything. The 6.8 Western uses a faster barrel twist rate, often 1 in 8, specifically to stabilize bullets between 165 and 175 grains. The original .270 Winchester twist rate couldn't handle projectiles that heavy. Without that twist rate change, the entire heavy bullet, high ballistic coefficient movement in this caliber class simply wouldn't exist. The .270 Winchester fires a 130-grain bullet at 3060 feet per second, delivering 1273 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards, with only 37 3/10 inches of drop from a 200-yard zero. The 6.8 Western pushes a heavier 165-grain bullet at 2970 feet per second, producing 1695 foot-pounds of energy at that same distance. That's a significant edge in retained energy over both the .270 Winchester and the 6.5 Creedmoor covered earlier. The trade-off comes down to recoil and barrel wear. The 6.8 Western generates noticeably more recoil energy than its lighter predecessor, and faster twist rates combined with higher velocities tend to accelerate throat erosion. Hunters chasing elk and moose at extended range accept that trade-off. Hunters after deer and pronghorn rarely need it. Both cartridges trace back to a single engineering philosophy: flat trajectory through bullet geometry rather than raw case capacity. That approach influenced nearly every high ballistic coefficient hunting cartridge released since. Next on this list, a short-action cartridge that gave up almost nothing compared to a case nearly twice its age. Rank number 3, the .308 Winchester. This cartridge matters because it proved a shorter case could match a longer one without sacrificing real-world performance. Engineers developed the .308 Winchester in 1952 as the commercial version of what would become the 7.62 2x51 NATO round. Military ballisticians wanted a cartridge that delivered 30-06 level performance from a shorter action, reducing rifle length and weight for infantry use. That same short-action geometry made the transition into civilian hunting rifles almost immediately. Here is what most people miss about this cartridge. The .308 Winchester reproduces between 93 and 95% of the 30-06 Springfield's ballistic performance, despite operating in a case roughly half an inch shorter. That efficiency let gunsmiths build rifles that run 4 to 8 ounces lighter and noticeably more compact, without asking the hunter to give up meaningful downrange energy. The .308 Winchester fires a 165-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second, producing around 1,250 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards. Compare that to the .270 Winchester's 1,273 foot-pounds at the same distance, a difference of only 23 foot-pounds, despite the .308 firing a heavier bullet at a lower velocity. Recoil energy runs close to 18.3 foot-pounds in an 8-pound rifle, noticeably milder than the Magnum class cartridges still ahead on this list. The trade-off is a slightly steeper trajectory compared to flatter shooting rounds like the .270 or 6.8 Western. That difference matters most, past 400 yards. Inside that range, the .308's drop remains manageable and predictable for most hunters. Military engineers designed this cartridge to shrink the rifle around the soldier, not to maximize any single performance metric. Next on this list, a cartridge that abandoned that entire philosophy and asked how much velocity a rifle could physically handle. Rank number 2, the .300 Winchester Magnum. This cartridge matters because it represents the ceiling of what standard bolt-action hunting rifles can practically deliver in velocity and energy. Winchester released the .300 Win-Mag in 1963, building it on a shortened, belted Holland & Holland case with a widened body and a 25-degree shoulder. That design gave the cartridge roughly 35 to 38% more case capacity than the .30-06 Springfield, while still fitting into a standard length action. Western hunters and military snipers adopted it quickly for its extended effective range. Here is the engineering decision that changed everything. A .300 Win-Mag rifle requires a 26-inch barrel to fully burn its 70 to 75 grain powder charge. Cut that barrel down to 22 inches, and velocity drops toward 30 or 6 levels, while muzzle blast and unburned powder expulsion increase. The cartridge's entire performance advantage depends on that extra barrel length, a trade-off most casual buyers never learn about at the counter. The .300 Win-Mag fires a 180-grain bullet at 2960 feet per second, generating 3502 foot-pounds of muzzle energy and retaining around 1415 to 1500 foot-pounds at 500 yards. Compare that to the .308 Winchester's 1250 foot-pounds at the same distance, a real advantage in downrange energy. That advantage comes paired with 27.9 to 40.6 foot-pounds of recoil energy in an 8-pound rifle, nearly double what the .308 produces. The trade-off is recoil management. Human physiological research shows involuntary flinching and shoulder bracing begin around 20 to 22 foot-pounds of recoil energy. Past that threshold, marksmanship degrades, and a well-placed shot becomes harder to guarantee under field conditions. Engineers built this cartridge to extend the effective range of a standard rifle platform, not to replace it entirely. Our number one cartridge is the one every Magnum on this list still gets measured against. You have waited long enough. Here it is. Rank number 1, the 30-06 Springfield. This cartridge matters because it has remained the standard by which every American hunting cartridge gets judged for over a century. The United States Army adopted the .30-06 Springfield in 1906 for military service, and it went on to arm American soldiers through 2 world wars before transitioning into the most widely used hunting cartridge on the continent. Ammunition manufacturers built entire product lines around it, offering bullet weights from 110 grains up to 220 grains. That range of options let a single rifle handle everything from pronghorn to brown bear, a versatility few cartridges before or since have matched. Here is what most people miss about this cartridge. The .30-06 Springfield operates at a maximum pressure of 60,000 pounds per square inch and burns its entire 55 to 59 grain powder charge completely within a standard 22 to 24-inch barrel. The 300 Win Mag, by comparison, needs a 26-inch barrel and higher pressure to burn 70 to 75 grains of slower powder. That efficiency lets the .30-06 deliver its full velocity potential from a shorter, lighter rifle, without the extra barrel length the Magnum class depends on. The .30-06 Springfield fires a 180-grain bullet at 2,700 feet per second, producing 2913 foot-pounds of muzzle energy and roughly 1340 foot-pounds at 500 yards. Compare that to the 300 Win Mag's 1415 to 1500 foot-pounds at the same range, a real but modest difference of under 200 foot-pounds. Now compare recoil. The .30-06 generates around 21.5 foot-pounds of recoil energy in an 8-pound rifle, well under the 300 Win Mag's 27.9 to 40.6 foot-pounds, and roughly double the 6.5 Creedmoor's recoil covered earlier in this list. The trade-off is a steeper trajectory than flatter shooting rounds like the .270 Winchester. That difference only matters past 400 yards, well beyond most ethical hunting shots taken in North America. The physics are clear. Manageable recoil produces better shot placement than raw Magnum energy ever will. Which cartridge do you trust most in the field, and why? Drop your answer below. This channel breaks down documentary-style analysis built on verified historical records, engineering research, and ballistics data, not marketing copy. If that's the kind of content you want more of, subscribe and stick around for the next deep dive.